Hello everyone, welcome to Knowledge Valley. My name is Why So Serious, and the topics of discussion for today are GST and fiscal federalism. Second topic is Discom sector, and third topic is related to the India and Myanmar relations. So let us begin with the first topic that talks about GST and fiscal federalism. What does the introduction say here is first we need to know or have a short information about what GST exactly is. So first we can use an adjective here which says that GST is one of the most significant fiscal reforms since independence. Now we need to give certain details about GST. So firstly, GST was brought through 101 Constitutional Amendment Act. It replaced various central and state taxes into single destination based tax. So the very purpose behind GST was to simplify the tax system in India. Thirdly, GST also talks about how it was a give and take and negotiation between center and states, where the states agreed with the center to bring GST, and the center in return, in order to compensate or fill the losses that the states were incurring due to bringing of GST, they assured the states that the center will give compensation for 5 years, and hence a specially compensation fund was set up for same. And also we know that GST Council was specifically set up to deal with the issues regarding GST. Now, what currently is happening due to the COVID crisis and lack of compensation fund resources, there has been constant bargaining between the center and the states, and they have been negotiating constantly through the GST Council meetings. Why is currently there a strain? We need to know that India has been facing economic slowdown since the very beginning of the financial year 2019-20, and the added disadvantages because of the COVID crisis. Hence, the tax collections have reduced. This has led to revenue shortfall, and the resources and compensation fund have automatically gone down or have depleted, and therefore this entirely has led to the strain situation. Currently, why the center and states are at loggerheads, we know that they have been meeting. The center asks or has been asking states to borrow from the market, whereas the states wants the center to borrow from the market and pay them or fill their compensation accordingly. What we need to see here is because of this tussle between the center and states going on currently, what things are getting violated or being threatened are efficiency, equity, stabilization, economic growth, and balanced development. So because of the current tussle of passing the compensation by the center to the states and being unable to do so, these things are being violated or being threatened. The next point is evolution of fiscal federalism. Here it mostly talks about the political dimension. So the author has tried to explain that how changing political parties and changing political system at the center has an effect or direct effect or indirect effect on fiscal federalism of the country. So it speaks about initially post independence, when there was single party system, single party domination under the Congress phase, there was not much tussle between the center and states, and they were unitedly working for the major reason that most of the state governments and the central governments belong to the same party, which was the Congress party. But during the later Congress phase, we see how the states began showing differences from the center. Then comes the coalition phase. In the coalition phase, it was one of the peak phases where federalism was being respected at its highest, and the states were being given due respect and their opinions were being considered at the center accordingly. And we know that in coalition parties, we have to consider the demands of other parties as well, or else there can be loss of majority. So, the crux of this evolutionary analysis here is party centralization directly is proportional to federal centralization. So, if there is party centralization, single party domination, then there is also federal centralization, which means the federal is more aligned to the orders or the demands of the center. As coalition or decentralization or multi-party system came in, the fiscal centralization also began to decline, and there were differences between the center and the states. So, conclusively, what it says is what the current scenario is that the states want to continue with the agreed framework on the passing of compensation for the 5 years that was promised by the center to the states. However, the center now is saying that it is not obliged or was never obliged to compulsorily pay the compensation to the states, and therefore it is indirectly undermining the federal structure. And hence, we need to realize that this process or current scenario is unsustainable, and it can have impact on the federal balance of our country. It can also, so basically how we can mention is it can slow down the wheel of federalism, and therefore both the center and the state need to mutually resolve and think from a larger perspective, that is from the development of the masses and the development of the country, and not from party specific or political interests. The next topic that we are going to discuss is about the discom sector. They have been in news because of the financial constraints that they have been facing. Now we need to know that discom sector, basically discom are distribution companies. What they do is they take electricity, they buy electricity from the electricity generators, and they distribute it amongst the citizens. They were initially regarded as linchpins, which means they were very significant in the electrical infrastructure of our country. But today, sadly, they have turned out to be the weakest link. First, we need to know that why discom sectors need to be emphasized so much. We know that India has been aiming to become global leader in renewable and smart energy. We have been a global leader in solar energy. We know are one of very significant initiatives about the International Solar Alliance, and also we are planning to bring into implementation a global solar infrastructure, one globe, one solar infrastructure, and therefore we are trying to become global leader at renewable energy. And discom sectors hence will hold a lot of relevance in the future. Current problems faced by discoms, we need to know first is the financial crisis that they have been facing. They owe around more than 1 lakh crore to the electricity generators, that is those generators from where they used to buy electricity and give it to the citizens. Second, there is short term dues are very large compared to the long term dues, and short term dues means their time limit is near of ending and they need to be paid immediately. Therefore, it has further brought panic in the current situation. Also, a term which is used commonly is AT&C losses, that is aggregate technical and commercial losses. This is nothing but this is a pan topic that includes all types of losses, be it technical, be it commercial, be it due to electricity theft, be it due to citizens not being able to pay their bills to the discoms. So everything is included and it is known as AT&C losses. Non-payment of loans by discoms. Discoms have been taking money and they have not been able to pay loans, rightly so, because they do not earn the profit that they should be earning. And one of the major problems here is the states are big defaulters here. One of the largest defaulting buyers of electricity from discoms are the states, which is very alarming. What measures do we need to take? We need to bring liquidity infusion. The government has already declared that it is going to pass an amount of money to the revival of discoms. However, further liquidity infusion is required. Secondly, multi-stakeholder approach. So we need to bring together the generators, the transmission companies, the lending institutions together, and then chalk out a way forward. Tackling A, T, and C problems, we saw that aggregate technical and commercial losses. So we need to look at the holistic level of losses and not focus on single kinds of losses. And also we can focus on privatization, which has been a continuous mantra of the current government. Although complete privatization would not suit our political alignment or ideology, where we are a mixed economy, but in phased manner we surely can bring privatization and discoms. Lastly, a way forward that we can use here or suggestion we can give is the renewable energy is our future, is India's future, is the it is the world's future, and therefore discom sector should be empowered to deal or provide renewable energy rather than the conventional electricity. Um, so the objectives that we can use in our conclusion is we need to have quality, affordable, and sustainable power requirements in the future. Now, our next topic is based upon India's relationship with its neighborhood countries. And a small article about India and Myanmar relations has been written today in The Hindu. First, we need to know that India Myanmar relations is a multi-dimensional aspect. How? First, the political dimension, that India is supporting the democratization in Myanmar. We know that Myanmar, although it claims itself to be a democracy, but there is military rule primarily there, and currently they are undergoing a transition phase where people are demanding democratic, truly democratic government, and we are hence supporting Myanmar in that. Next is non-interference in internal politics. This has been one of the key ingredients of our Panchsheel, which talks about non-interference, and it applies to most of the bilateral relations of India. Next is geopolitical significance. Why is Myanmar so significant? First of all, it has a border with us. It shares a border with us, and secondly, it is also known as gateway to Southeast Asia. It links South Asia with the Southeast Asia. What are the recent initiatives? So one thing that we can mention is how diplomatic relations are being improved is recently a liaison office of Embassy of India was inaugurated in Naypyidaw, which is the capital of Myanmar. India has also suggested and came out with implementing or investing $6 billion to build a petroleum refinery in Myanmar. So this talks about the energy security relations between the two countries. Next talks about the security relations. So we have mutually agreed to not allow undesirable activities on each other's soil. So we know not about the northeast insurgency and the left-wing extremism that takes place in the northeastern uh, states of India. And currently we had Operation Sunrise, where we tried to eliminate cross-border anti-national or radical elements. It was a military mission. Next is development of border areas. Of course, we can develop border huts, we can develop integrated checkposts, and it will also ensure border security and illegal infiltration can be checked. So the way forward here, simple, is we know one common issue with Myanmar that comes in our mind. The very first thing that comes in our mind is the Rohingya issue. So we need to balance our interests with Bangladesh as well as Myanmar together on the Rohingya issue, and therefore the writer suggests that here the path of criticism should not be an option. In fact, we should actively engage. We should engage with Myanmar as well as Bangladesh to solve the issue rather than criticizing or taking sides. So these were the topics that we discussed today. Also, lastly, I would want you all to never forget that the art and science of asking questions is the source of all knowledge. Thank you.